is 935-1520-9819. You can also call 888-7. End of
Recording
the
in
meeting
progress.
as well.
Okay, presently I don't see anyone.
Okay, if somebody does come, you can just alert us. And in the interim, I presume everyone has got a chance to review the August meeting minutes. Are there any corrections or additions, or is there any discussion of that set of minutes?
The only correction is the call the meeting to order at should be 6:01, not 7:01.
Oh, okay, thank you.
The first item, call to order.
Good catch.
6:01.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I'm treasurer and another board, so I have to be aware of all the numbers.
You know, probably someday, 3 years from now, they'll ask why we started the meeting so late.
Yes.
So thank you for that. Because we would not remember that we were actually on time. Any other corrections, additions, discussion of the August minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve them with the time correction?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting with the correction.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. And Denise, just jump in if there is a call that shows up.
I sure will.
Because it may be topical. It may be on one of the topics that we're discussing, which I think we could probably handle. The first order of business is some old business to have an update on the complaint review process. So Commissioner Tadoro Hargraves.
So I just wanted to give a quick update just so folks know where we are. We're doing really well. Every month we do get the sheet from PD to let us know where they are in the course of investigations. That's been helping us out quite a bit, especially if individuals who complained through us are contacting Ms. Janess to find out what the status is. She's able to look at the document and be able to say it's still pending, or you should have received your letter, things like that. And she's able to then ask them, did you receive the letter? Can you send us a copy of it? And we're getting better at communicating and being able to stay on task. The other thing is she's getting some of the complainants be able to supplement work through us, and then she's forwarding it to PD, especially if the complaint is still pending. We are still having some obstacles with technical difficulties that we're still working out in order for us to be able to review body cam footage. We'll be sent the links to evidence.com and it'll be empty. So we're still working out those glitches, but so that's still adding to the amount of time that we have. But Denise is going to be scheduling another session for us in next week or so, going into October, where we'll be sitting down with IT and reviewing these things again. And I think the more we do that, the easier that everything will fall into place. We do have our 5 information managers now, so we're hoping to start moving through the process quicker. In 2020, we had a total of 29 complaints. We're just finishing those up. We have 9 more to go. And so we're hoping to get those done in the coming weeks so that we can start 2021. Currently, there are 16 for 2021. They're not all finished yet, so many of them are still pending. But once they finish, or once we finish 2020, we'll go right into 2021 and begin the ones that are completed. So right now, that's where we're at. If anybody has any questions or anything, feel free.
Just to clarify too, when Commissioner Tadoro Hargraves is talking about those that are finished, she means those that are finished the investigation from the police department. So of
Right.
those 16, not all of them are finished with the police side investigation, and then we'll get a chance to review them after that. We also now have a pretty decent template. We've collected some, and so I'll be sharing them with everybody, but from other municipalities about how they write up the summaries of the cases that they reviewed. That will make the process of us writing them up more expeditious. And then we will figure out a way to post those on our website. They will be anonymized at that point. So complainants names or police officer names will not be visible at that time due to the collective bargaining agreement and the laws of the state of Michigan at this time, but we will start to post those on our website so people can sort through them and they can see how many complaints were sustained by police and what whether we agreed with those findings or not, et cetera. And we'll also try to find a way to categorize them. So if people were interested, say, in looking at excessive force complaints or rudeness complaints, or all complaints that were sustained, or all complaints that were have a particular status. So that's something that we'd like to do. A lot of municipalities are struggling with how to make them more searchable. And so we'll try to figure that out and probably have some tweaks along the way, but we're looking forward to being able to do that.
I think that's even something that I'm looking at as I'm going through this for my own record keeping purposes, being able to look back and quickly say, well, what were the policies involved in this complaint? And when you're reviewing it, you know, because you're reading it, you're going through all the documents, but to be able to look back at something really quickly, there's nothing right there that says, you know, this was policy regarding XYZ. So I'm looking at ways to even just organize it more effectively that way. Because I do think it is helpful to be able to understand very quickly which policies were involved in the complaint.
And so that may be another way by which we could search. I've noticed some municipalities do that. I'm actually looking at one here where they kind of have them, there's a way to sort through them by which policies were involved. And so that might be another field that we could use that could be searchable for people, particularly since some of those police policies are listed, but we can certainly make our own list as well. Any questions for Commissioner Tadoro Hargraves about complaint review processes? Commissioner Walton?
All right, didn't raise my electronic hand, but essentially, I mean, it was actually more of a comment than it was a question. But in terms of tracking, I wonder if it's worth us making maybe even like a little Google quiz, a Google form that could collect those key pieces of information. Then every time we finished a complaint, we could just submit that form for it, and then back end, it's going to do that collation for us in some way. So it's not particularly technical, but with the numbers we're talking about, it'll probably do the job.
Noted.
Councilmember Song has her hand up, and we have a caller.
Okay, Councilmember Song first, and then the caller.
Yeah, I was just wondering if we could touch on how folks are hearing about ICPOC as part of the process. So there was the flyer, right, that's being put out on buses. Is there any effort so that information is actually passed out by PD along with their cards, or where are we on
I don't think there is a memorandum of understanding for the police to disseminate any information about us at this point. However, that is something that we should certainly discuss. And I know we have discussed it informally in a couple of contexts where we wanted PD to have to make every complainant aware that they could also complain to us. But that there has not been an agreement with PD to that point.
I don't think people naturally think to look for an oversight commission or are aware that an oversight commission exists in the city.
Right.
So maybe.
I do think I agree that it's like I recently went to a Main Street Area Association meeting and spoke about who we were. and what our role was. And it just like, for some, it just goes over their head. They really don't understand what our role is. And Chief Cox was in the meeting with me, and so they just immediately started asking Chief Cox questions about police services. It didn't stay focused on who ICPOC was and what our role is. So I think that it needs to, a flyer is good, but we need to each be out there doing stuff. I think Lisa, Chair Jackson talked about this the last meeting too, to be out there really telling people who we are and doing more outreach.
I appreciate it.
I think we have an outreach committee, but we need probably everyone on the commission to be involved in outreach in some way, shape, or form. That's something that I do regularly, and we hope that eventually everyone will engage in those activities. I think it's also unclear to the public what the scope of our work is. We got a complaint about the noise at the armory, the shooting range, and that's not our bailiwick. It belongs to the county. It's not ours, and we can't regulate the noise or the hours where police do their training anyway. That's not in our jurisdiction. So there is sometimes some confusion about what we do, but I do think there is a salient message about when you have a complaint about the police, is complaining to the police the best way to resolve that complaint? Is that the best way to get your complaint heard? Is that the most effective way of getting that done? And what verifications are there? What sort of corroboration is there when you do that? And so I think there's an argument to be made that, perhaps complaining to a third party might be more effective in some ways.
Yeah, I just want to make the point that just because anyone puts anything on a website doesn't mean that people magically find it on their own. Unless you're running Google ads too, but
especially the city's website is really cumbersome and it's hard to find us.
Yep. So maybe we can extend it some other time. So the internet will not save us is basically what I'm saying. All right. Thank you.
Will not save us. Councilmember Rumlawi.
And thank you. Since we're on this topic, I guess I will ask Ariane Slay, if it's okay, whether there's been any movement on the communications channel that was proposed, possibly with the diversion and expungement program that we set up for the city to better communicate with its residents and others on a multitude of communications. And since we're on this, I apologize, but I would want to know if we're moving in that direction for more communications with that program.
Did you mean communication as regarded our commission, or did you have a question about?
It was gonna help a lot of different commissions, and perhaps this one. I'm not sure if this commission would like to subscribe to that, but it was a tool that was suggested that could help expand our communication channels for many of our boards and commissions, and especially the diversion and expungement program that we recently approved.
So the quick update on that is that the communications department, Ms. Wandrash, is working with a local contractor to get the word out about the diversion and deflection. We have updates on our website going, and we have proposed language to the contractor for marketing purposes. I believe Ms. Wandrash, it's her intention, once we get that out in order, that she can start making use of other social media accounts. As many of you know, this city really only uses Facebook. And if you ask my kids, because I part my hair to one side and I wear mom jeans, not the cool mom jeans that the kids are wearing today, that Facebook is just for a certain generation. So to help us reach other folks, Miss Wandrash is taking on the task of figuring out how we can be on Instagram and Snap and doing whatever it is that the other generations are doing today that I'm amiss with. So hopefully in the next month or two, we'll have those systems available. So should ICPOC want to have a part of access to a government account, that's something that we're looking forward to using on not just this commission, but for everybody. Just kind of getting out there outside of the realm of Facebook and visit our website.
But you guys are talking about setting one up for the city, right?
Yep, for the whole
Okay.
city, because there's a certain process. It's not just a regular user account. When you're connected
Like
to a
government,
municipality, there's different rules, and setting up those government accounts, I guess, is not an easy or a 5-minute task as if a private citizen were to do it. So,
Right. Gotcha.
yeah.
So thank you for asking that question. I mean, as people here know, we have Twitter and Instagram as well. So if, the city can give us some shouts out, that would be fantastic. But, certainly due to our independent nature, we do have to, tweet and post on our own. And, but, if we can double down on those efforts, that would be great to increase awareness. Denise, you said there was a caller?
Yes, we have a caller.
All right.
One moment. Caller. Good afternoon. Hello? Can you unmute, please?
You can hit *6 to unmute.
Good afternoon. Okay, I'll work with him or her and we'll get back to you.
All right, Commissioner Shipp, you had a question or a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say back to the outreach portion. I'm working with student government here at Michigan to get a pamphlet out. It's going to be coming soon. I'm really like the one organizing it, but I'm working with other organizations on campus. So student government, and then there's an organization called Care Not Cops on Michigan's campus that's new. So I'm going to be working with them to it's kind of going to be an informational pamphlet that's going to have a page for ICPOC, its own separate page, which will have information about us, our website with the QR code so people can easily access it. And there's going to be a separate page for about DPSS and stuff like that. But the goal is to have those pamphlets inside of residence halls and around campus, on different poles and stuff like that. So as soon as we can figure out what we have to do in order to be able to get them inside buildings, is as soon as the pamphlet will be up. So that will be another avenue for outreach.
Thank you. That's a population that has been so tough for us to reach, but lots and lots of students are impacted by AAPD despite their interactions on campus. The vast majority of students live off campus. So we appreciate you reaching into that demographic in a way that we have not had success doing. Anything else on complaint review before we move on?
I just had a quick question. Do we work with the police oversight group at the university? Is there a way for us to coordinate there?
I belong to a group, or we are represented in a group of Washtenaw oversight groups. And so that includes oversight of Michigan, oversight of Eastern, oversight of the city of Ypsilanti, and oversight of Ann Arbor. And so we do communicate, collaborate. The next item, and so lots of times they ask us questions and we share information, try not to reinvent the wheel. And we try to stay abreast of what's going on over there as they do with us. So we do collaborate with them a bit. Their structure is so different from ours, but I think, there is some overlap in terms of sharing resources for sure. So for example, I think they'll be joining NACOL and they'll be starting to attend conferences and things like that as part of their training. And they're very interested in our training plan, which is kind of next up on the agenda. So we do try to share information that way and at least keep each other abreast of what's going on.
Okay,
because there is, overlap geographically.
great. Thank you.
Thank you for asking that. So I will share my screen if I can. Let's see. Because we talked about a training plan some time ago, but we need to formalize it. Okay, hold on a second. My screen sharing thing is not working really well. There we go. So can you guys see this document? Okay.
Yeah.
This was the draft of the training plan that was created by Commissioner Walton, who obviously has a great deal of human resources experience, although it is now called employee experience at her place of employment. And she was kind enough to put this training plan together. We looked at it as a commission some time ago, but we should vote. We should make any changes to it that we feel are relevant, and then we should vote. And we should do so with the understanding that this should be a living, breathing document. As we have new commissioners come on, which we hope we'll have very soon, and they go through training, we will evaluate how it's working. As those of us who are on the commission already go through training, we'll evaluate how it's working. And so what we'd like to do is sort of make it an actual sort of agreed upon training plan, but with the understanding that we may update it or at least revisit it, every couple of years or 18 months or something to see if it needs tweaking. And so it was built on the assumption that people could offer about 10 hours a month. We know that some people do far more than that. And we know that in these first couple of years, probably more time has been necessary, but it was broken down into our monthly meeting, which is 2 hours, probably spending at least an hour on email, and thinking about 3 hours of training, and then perhaps 4 additional hours on subcommittees, going to community meetings, doing outreach, things like that. So one part of this training involves NACOL certification, which does not have to be attained by every commissioner, but the suggestion was that about 25% of commissioners be credentialed as a certified practitioner of oversight. And if you have about 25% of us certified, that means as people roll off, there will likely always be a person who is certified who is on the commission, and certainly we would continue with that training. It means that to qualify for certification, a person has to have done at least 45 credit hours of NACOL certified training and attended 2 annual conferences within 3 years. You have to attain the training in 6 different core competencies, and those include civilian oversight of law enforcement, investigations, the public and transparency, law, policing, and law enforcement policies and procedures, remediation, and discipline. And so you need a broad spectrum of training to get this certification. You also have to do some reading for the reading list. You have to meet the requirements within 3 years, and it looks like there are at least a couple of other commissioners who are on the path to becoming certified, and I was able to get certified last year. And so you can maintain the certification by having 30 hours of certified training every year and attending at least 1 conference within the next 3 years. So I've maintained my certification this year, and as others join us, that'll be nice. And then as I roll off, others will get certified as well. So that was a thought that was probably important. There is being certified by a national oversight group lends some credibility to the work that we do. I think as we talk about the fact that some people don't understand what our role is, I think there's also some worry that we're just a bunch of citizens sitting around judging police officers, where oversight has a philosophy and a body of work and a certain amount of rigor that is expected, and that the public should be able to expect us to engage in. And so having that NACOL certification is to some degree an assurance that we're taking the job seriously and that we're doing what it takes to make sure we have the competence to do what's a pretty challenging job. And so the training that Commissioner Walton has developed is based on these priorities and recommended topics. And it does allow commissioners to explore topics in which they might be more interested. So for example, this year's virtual conference is organized into a reform track. And so it talks about reforming policing, the infiltration of white supremacists into law enforcement, duty to intervene. And then there's an innovations track where it talks about sort of innovations that are being made in oversight. Of particular interest was a session called Clippers and Cops that you guys might have heard of before. I think it started in Atlanta in a barbershop. There were some police officers who decided to hang out in the barbershop and sort of talk about what they did. Community activists got involved as well. And they have this sort of collaborative, sort of organic group of primarily African-American men who meet in Black barbershops and talk to people in the community about what policing is doing and how that can be improved and how communities can be more involved in policing and get to know the people that are operating in their neighborhoods. They're also talking about other kinds of technological advances. There's another track that works on strengthening the work of oversight. I was able to present in that track on maintaining for enthusiasm for oversight in the face of resistance and setbacks. There's also an international track this year. And so there were sessions on oversight in other countries, which can be informative for us as well, thinking about how things are different and similar. And then there's a jail and prison track, which has been expanded this year. And although there is no jail or prison or incarceration sort of jurisdiction that we have, it was actually very informative in terms of thinking about the ways in which people collected data and managed to do work, both before and during COVID, and now as COVID is sort of shifting that landscape. And so there are different tracks that people can, attend, and all of our commissioners have the opportunity to attend any one of these sessions or all of the sessions, and all of them are recorded, and so will be available if anybody else wants to view them on NACOLE.org, NACOLE.org, until the end of December, I believe. And so, there's a wide variety of trainings that people can do through NACOLE. However, we recognize that there are other ways that people can get training as well. There are other webinars, there are other sessions. I know some of you participated in this session on how some municipalities have started working with non-police response to mental health issues, and that would certainly be considered a training. And so we're looking to track everybody's training. We think police ride-alongs are an important part of training, getting a bird's eye view on what some types of calls look like. Certainly commissioners can do more than one. We know those stopped during COVID. As there's concern about transmission, we don't want to infect police officers, nor do we want, any transmission from police officers. So we haven't done those during COVID, but as the world becomes a little bit healthier, we can resume those, and people might consider doing different types of ride-alongs. So doing one in the middle of the night, doing one on a football Saturday, doing one with a particular type of unit can be informative. And so then in the first 30 days, there were some things that we thought were really important to do, sort of understanding board procedures and the overview of who we are. Reading NACOLE's 13 principles for civilian oversight is probably something that, we need everybody to do in the first 30 days, but then to revisit that to some degree, I believe that probably comes up again. But these are important because sometimes these things get lost in the work that we do. And so those 13 principles include the principle of independence, having unfettered access to records, access to law enforcement executives and internal affairs staff, having full cooperation of law enforcement, public reporting and transparency, and community outreach are just some of those. And so those are things of which we always need to be reminded. New commissioners need to get familiar with those and sort of understand what that means in terms of oversight, and meeting the police chief in the first 30 days. And then at 6 months, the suggestion was to have read the Citizens Review of Police. It gives kind of a broad orientation of police oversight, having completed the ride along, learning about some legal terms that come up. And for example, there's an orientation, sort of a training that the police department puts on that many of us attended in person. I think there were actually a couple of virtual sessions as well that talked about use of force and sort of explain those processes. And there are other trainings that the AAPD has made available to us. So several of us attended LEADS training in June, where the law enforcement, where they were the trainers were getting ready to train all Ann Arbor Police Department officers on de-escalation tactics, and they took us through the training as well. And then by 12 months have attended at least 6 webinar sessions of NACOL, and then read the guidebook for new and revitalized police oversight. The suggestion is revisiting those 13 principles and continuing to do webinars, one every other month or so. They're typically 90 minutes, and that includes about an hour and 15-minute presentation and then time for questions. And so this helps make sure that commissioners are trained, well-trained and competent to do the work, but also that they do continuing education, because that's really important. So what would you guys want to add to this? Or Commissioner Walton, do you want to jump in at any point?
I don't know that I want to jump in. The one thing I'm conscious of here is this is very, very reading heavy. I'm not, I would prefer it if there was a more diverse sort of set of styles and media for getting it. But I don't also want to let perfect be the enemy of good. And I think having something and starting it and then adjusting it as we find new things and add new things is a smarter approach.
So I'm looking at the things that are not reading. Doing a ride along, any of the webinars, the training with Ann Arbor, whether that is the use of force sort of training and explanation about what the police department does, kind of an overview, or their leads training. Webinars or not, it is pretty reading heavy. It's definitely listening heavy. And certainly we need to talk about how there are other kinds of things that people could do that would qualify as training, right? Attending health talks on, mental health responses. I just went to a talk on mental health assistance. And this is when regular folks get trained to do some mental health work in their own communities. And it was a very powerful session, and it holds a lot of promise for how we might manage that in Ann Arbor. The first context in which the presentation was made was from within the LA County jail system. So there are 3 inmates who started the program, who run the program, who went through extensive training, who now train other people. And the county sheriffs rely on these inmates, the mental health professionals rely on these inmates. And then it expanded out into the community in San Francisco. They started training mental health assistants in the community, and they have been a real asset to their county mental health department. And so they have become a relied upon asset in their community. So there are lots of kinds of things that we could participate in that could count as training, I think, other than reading. But we could make sure that's clear to everybody, or we could try to kind of list these out here, or we could state that somewhere in here. So training can include.
I was going to say, NACOL does have a list. There's another version of this document that does actually have a list, admittedly mostly taken from NACOL's website, but a list of different ways that you can do it, and a lot of them are less reading based. I think if we attach that along with whatever we have for training, then people can pick and can kind of.
Is that in my email from you?
Somewhere. I'll
I will
resend it to you after
find
this
it.
meeting. I can resend it. I've got it up.
I'll find it, trust me.
Chair Jackson, Attorney Slay has her hand up.
I'm sorry, go right ahead. It's hard for me to see the little screen because of the big screen.
Oh, no problem. Just making a suggestion from the peanut gallery is in that first 30 days, there is, I know more reading, you'll be excited, but there is a pamphlet on OMA, so the Open Meetings Act, and FOIA considerations. Since this group really honors transparency, we want to make sure that everyone understands what their obligations are in terms of communication, and then what needs to be retained for future FOIA requests or things of that nature.
Uh-oh, hold on. I like it. My suspicion is that this will be in the packet because I know I got a thing on the Open Meetings Act when I joined, but it doesn't hurt to kind of specify that.
Yes, I always love recursive things that would get us into legal quandaries if we didn't follow the rules. So thanks for that. Thanks for putting my mind at ease.
And how did you say FOIA requirements?
Yes, the FOIA, we can do FOIA or maybe records retention requirements. I know Chris Frost has a already prepared couple-page summary of everything one would need to know if they're serving on a board or commission, what the city policy is in the state law.
Would you ask him to send me that in case I don't have it in my giant binder? Because what we'd like to do is make binders for our new commissioners and maybe a couple of our newest commissioners with all of the things that we got in the beginning and all the things we required since then, which will definitely kill a tree, I'm sure. But I think these are really helpful because people want to know why we meet when we meet and the way we do and why we have to post notices about our meetings. So this makes sense.
No problem. I will do that right now.
Thank you. I'm sure I should have it, but it just, it's a lot. And so any other suggestions? So we have a suggestion, Jude, to add the list of things that are not reading centric. Anything else that we should add? Anything you guys want to delete?
Are, are we going to vote on this version of requirements for commissioners, or we can look at it and bring any kind of changes to our next meeting?
We could do that. We could wait, or we could vote today in that. I know you guys have seen this before. If you feel like you need to do some research to add some things to this, we could certainly wait. There are other municipalities, though, that are really interested in looking at this. I mean, you know, we can tell them the gist of it. You know, it doesn't have to be our official training plan for other people to benefit from it. But
if this is going to be just a first draft or a draft, and it's going to be improved over time or appended over time, that's fine. We can vote on it today.
I mean, I suppose we could wait another month if you want, but also we can amend it next month if we need to, or in 2 months if people need more time to look it over.
To me, I think if we just go and vote on it now and open it for changes, for future changes or modifications or amendments, that's fine too.
Okay. And Jude, if you send me, did you find the list? Because I can paste it in here if you want before we vote. Or you can send the newer one, whatever, and I can merge them. Councilmember Ramlawi.
Thank you. I would just maybe, and I know I'm a non-voting member, I'm just here, but I would suggest maybe it's going to require more than 10 hours a month. I don't think, unless you're really super efficient, going to be able to do what I think many of us expect and want in just 10 hours. I think it's going to be closer to 15 hours a month just to kind of help set the expectations. I'm just not sure that 10 hours is really enough time to do the work this commission is set to do. So I just that's just a little bit of what I think, but you know what I think doesn't really matter when it comes to how this commission, you know, governs itself.
It certainly could take more, but maybe we should say the commission work is, would you like, Jude, what do you think about the language, changing the language that it's at least 10 hours a month? I mean, so one of the things that some commissioners do is they do a complaint review meeting with PD, and we do that once a month. And that is about 2 hours. And that could certainly fall under this. It probably takes a couple hours to prep for that. You have to watch all the dash cam video, the body cam footage. Like if it's one scene, you're going to watch that from multiple angles. That does take some time. That might fall within the 4 hours of additional work. Like people doing community meetings, setting up community meetings, things like that. So we could try, I mean, we could certainly say that it's a minimum of 10 hours a month. We could say it's 15 hours a month. I don't know where we would. I'm not very good at this because I spend so much more time than this on this. So, but I think if we have particularly a new commissioner, this might be about right for them, but you guys should weigh in with with your experiences on this, Jude in particular. And then I have this, I have the email you just sent me.
I think it ebbs and flows. I think having minimum, at least something along those lines, more than comfortable with that. I mean, we could raise the amount, you know, and those, you know, this was from the earlier drafts. I'm certainly not like, you know, not set on having to have those divisions of time. That was just kind of a snapshot look. It is different if you're doing complaint review, you know, and I think it does depend a little bit on your role. So yeah, I'm happy with either increasing that number or making it noted that that's a minimum.
I would suggest maybe we'll make it a range from 10 to 20 hours per month. So some commissioners probably will go 10 hours because they are not involved in reviewing the cases and complaints, and others would be, or some would like attend some kind of webinars or meetings, etc. So, or readings. I would say 10 to 20 hours, and that would include the 15 that Council Member Romawi had in mind. So,
All righty. I think that's fair. And then Jude, the list that you sent me, should I just copy and paste this in? Not the reading list part, but like these other sorts of resources? Was that the thought?
If you want to keep it for information, but my thought is we will transfer this over either to a Google Doc where we can track for each individual commissioner or whatever. And then with that, it could be a front page to that, because I'd like to have all these links in one place as well for folks so they can very easily just click a link and go to the resource.
So maybe this is the training plan and we could give people this sort of list and the program reading list as like an informational, here's how to attain some of the training. Okay. So then maybe this plan works kind of as it is. Any other additions, discussion? Are we good with this the way it is? Then is there a motion to take a vote? I think everything is visible. Is there a motion to vote on adopting this training plan?
I'll move to adopt it.
Is there a second?
second,
All in favor of adopting this training plan? Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, so we have a new official training plan. And then, and so what I'll do is I've sent you guys the reading list before, and I will send it again. And you guys know that Denise has maintained a library. She has, I think I have given her the last few books that I had in my roving mobile library. So now she's sort of back in her office intermittently, and she's getting more books. And so we do have a library there. We also have journal articles that I have as PDFs. I think Denise has them as PDFs also in a file, but we can just keep collecting those as well. And then we have a list of other organizations from which people can attain training: the American Civil Liberties Union, National Alliance on Mental Illness, homeless advocacy organizations, the Urban League, mediation centers. We certainly have a dispute resolution center right here in Ann Arbor that's a resource, and so other kinds of organizations as well. So we can make sure that everybody has access to all this information, so that if anyone is looking for training, then they know where to find it. So I will save that plan and then send it out to everyone. And then new business. This is just a thing for us to start thinking about. We need to start, each of us needs to start thinking about it. Maybe we need to collect a list of criteria that we would want in new commissioners. And so that is not so much a wish list of our personal desires as much as it is us strategically starting to think about strengths and areas of improvement on the commission in terms of commissioners. So what other kinds of commissioners might we need to have? We're starting our interview process, I think on Wednesday, we start tomorrow. And we have several interviews lined up now. And so if anyone is interested in applying, please go to our website. If you go to the City of Ann Arbor's website and you search for boards and commissions and you put in the search box Independent Community Police Oversight Commission, you'll land on our homepage. And if you scroll down, there is a link to apply to the board, to the commission, sorry. It says ICPOC application under reference materials. And so if you're interested in applying, please do that, because we're continuing to interview people. And there'll be more people turning over, you know, at the end of this sort of cycle, and then the year after that. And so we'll always have people changing over. And so, you know, certainly please, if you're interested, apply. But we need to start thinking about what kinds of people might be useful. For example, I was in a talk and they were talking about how almost every commission like this, every oversight board needs a data analyst, needs a person who can crunch numbers. Now, we're not getting many numbers from the police department yet, but in January, they got a data analyst. And so we're hoping that soon we'll start getting data out of them. The traffic stop data we got wasn't really usable, but they have indicated that this week they're going to send an updated batch of data that is more usable. And so we'll be able to start analyzing traffic stop data with the SMART team at Eastern Michigan under the direction of Dr. Kevin Karpiak. But there are other kinds of data that we need. And so if we have a data analyst, that person could certainly lead the charge in sort of thinking about that. Commissioner Tadoro Hargraves.
Do we have a subcommittee that is doing the interviews? Like, how do we know who to send our comments to or questions to?
I think that everybody should be involved in thinking about that strategically, and maybe we should all sort of, because I think we should all be thinking about sort of keeping our eye open for people, spreading the word, begging people, recruiting
Right, but
people. Who's
in the interviews, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
So there are 4 of us doing interviews, so we don't have quorum. So Jude, it's you, me, Commissioner Othman, Commissioner Carter. But maybe we could have Denise be the repository, or we could send them to everyone as we think about what these criteria are. So I wouldn't want it to just be the people conducting the interviews. I'd want all of us to start thinking about, you know, past these commissioners that we're interviewing now, what should we start to look for? Should we look for a data analyst? Should we look for a person who is well-versed in labor law? Do we need a person to do underwater basket weaving? Whatever it is, we need to start thinking strategically about what things would be useful to us in that way. And there are some exercises, and I'll try to find one that sort of, you know, we could assess our own experiences and strengths and weaknesses and look at the things that we need and sort of find gaps that way. I mean, it has been, for example, to have a person who's skilled in human resources has been amazingly helpful for us in terms of thinking about many of the processes that we do. Having an attorney on board who used to work for the city attorney's office has been so useful to us. And so, you know, as we think about sort of the experiences we bring to this, what other things might we need is always, I think, a good question. But that's something for you guys to start thinking about, and then I can send an email around it. And if I'm good, I'll find like, there's actually an exercise we can do to kind of assess ourselves and then see where we might have some gaps.
I was going to say, this feels very much in line with the strategic goals that I said that I would take ownership of coming out of our retreat. So if you want to point person and say, I'd be happy, you could send them to me, because I think end goal would be, it'd be great if we can end up with a matrix of the different sort of skills and expertise that we always want to have on the commission. And then as somebody rolls off, we can see easily where the gap has come from. So, I mean, you know, obviously content has to come from everyone, but I'm happy to put it together if you want.
Okay, so that's a solution. We're sending them to Jude. And they do fall in line with our strategic planning goals, right? We have to think about how to make sure that we're viable and can do the work that we need to get done. And then NACOL conference trainings updates. Is there anything anybody wants to share about the training that they've been doing from NACOL? I kind of touched on it a little bit, some of the ones that I've been to lately. We're almost finished. We'll be finished in October, but we've been at this since August. Today was a very informative seminar on the challenges of arbitration for oversight and the challenges of arbitration for accountability and transparency. And so I don't know if anybody else was watching that, but we had a person, oh boy, I'm going to forget Brandon's last name, but from Grand Rapids, who leads their oversight, and theirs is structured a little bit differently from ours, but it was so informative to listen to how they think about arbitration and how oversight sort of interacts with that process and thinking about complaints. And thinking about the way unions are structured. And so it was very interesting to listen to somebody from the state of Michigan with the constraints and the rules that surround police unions here as compared to, I think, Seattle, and another couple of other cities. And tomorrow, on Thursday is a data analysis session on how to take data analysis and turn it into policy recommendations. So if anyone's interested, they can see the list of the sessions at nacol.org, and all of the sessions are still able to view. Commissioners, obviously, you can look at the list and see if there's anything interesting. If you have missed them, then they're there for you to view for quite some time. But if you didn't sign up for a particular one, you can certainly still do that. Anybody else want to add anything to that?
So, I've been watching when I could. They come in the middle of the day, so if you're in the middle of a work day, that's sometimes hard. I did see the one where our chairperson spoke. Commissioner Jackson did a lovely job. Yes, did a lovely job. And so I watched about. I was going to watch everyone. I got about to number 4. And so I'm glad to hear that they are available. There are a couple that I really wanted to hear, but I find them very, very informative. So
I wasn't so interested in watching the prison ones, but I watched them anyway. And the first one I watched, I realized that some of the same challenges that they have in oversight of prisons are same challenges we have in oversight of municipal police department. And so I realized sort of the overlap, and then I started being a little more excited about listening to them. And there was a lot about how to get information and how to access and analyze information, even when it's really challenging. And so I thought that was pretty useful.
Yeah, they're good.
Mm-hmm.
But if you guys have missed any and you signed up for them, you can certainly go back and watch them, and you can email the person, Cameron McElhenney, who sends the emails, you can just ask her how to view them if it's not clear how to view them. I think the link that lets you watch them also lets you go back and watch the recording, and they usually are up about 24 to 48 hours later, I think so. And then if you're doing the certification, you just kind of document which ones you watched, and they know that, and they can verify that. And so you document how many you watched of whatever track or whatever, and they and you can keep up with that as long as it takes you to reach the goal of the certification process.
Yeah, I think it was really the prison jail stuff. Those sessions were very interesting in a way that, yes, they go outside of our privies and all these things, but there are some similarities in what we are doing and what they are doing. They focus on transparency, human rights of individuals who are incarcerated, what are programs that are available for them, what they do after they are being released, etc. And that also falls into the crew report that we are, as subcommittee over here with the Human Rights Commission, we are looking into. What are the programs that are available for individuals who are incarcerated, how we are going to groom them into becoming, assimilate into the community after they are leaving, what are the programs that are available for them, what are the difficulties that they have, the rate of return of them going back to jails or prisons, etc., why things fail, why things succeed. And I probably maybe on the point of the reporting on subcommittees, I probably would dwell on that a little bit further. But really, it's very interesting. The other thing is the one that I was quite really moved by is the use of lethal force where women and children are collateral damage. And to me, that was, it's just innocent individuals are being, their lives are being wasted just because they're being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And actually, one of the things that I had asked, I usually try to ask a question in each of those, if they take the question, was what are the resources that are available for refugees who come over here to this country?
They asked your question. They picked your question. I heard that question.
And it's really interesting to see what is available for those individuals. They were looking at the agencies that are helping refugees. Do they have mental, social health, etc.? And one of the things that is happening is they need housing, transportation, interpreters, etc., etc. So, and then, these individuals or these refugees really had hard time. When they got here, it's not like it was an easy trip or journey. And looking at the post-traumatic stress disorder, when we're talking about kids, I don't know. I think there's going to be a huge discipline of the mental health of the youth or the young, not only just the old folks or the adults, but also for pediatrics, mental health, and it's great to hear some of the resources that are available that also can be used for folks who have been in jail for a long time when they go out. And also, one would say, resources available for law enforcement, because they see lots of things. and sometimes they tend not to use the resources available for them because they feel they might be a little bit when you are a police officer or so, or law enforcement, you don't want to really feel that you are also a human being where you need the help. They think that they can do it without, but they really they should take advantage of whatever resources that are available for them too.
That was a really powerful session. It started off talking about the numbers of women and children who were killed by police when police were pursuing other people. There was a car chase where a 6-month-old baby was killed. They knew that the person had the baby in the car, and they just shot the car full of holes and killed the baby. They did not kill the person they were after. There was another one where they entered a home and killed a pregnant woman who was sleeping in the bed. And initially the media reports were it was really terrible that man used his pregnant girlfriend as a shield. And it turns out that was not at all what happened. She was in the bed asleep when she was killed by police, who came in the house and just kind of shot up the entire household. And these were investigators from other cities. I think one was from St. Louis, and they had case after case after case like this. And it was really hard to listen to. And I thought, okay, well, if this happened to people, the least I can do is bear witness to that, right? So, I have to sit here and listen to this. But they did end with thinking about how to offer help for traumatized communities, which on the one hand is a shame that you need help for traumatized communities, but it is a very real thing. And then talking about the differences between what kinds of therapies may work for adults and teens and younger people who need very different kinds of therapy, as their brains are not nearly developed, not until about 25-ish are they adult brains. And then that leads me to remind everyone that on Thursday from 4 to 6, we are doing our trauma-informed, the second part of our trauma-informed training. And so I hope everyone will be able to make it. And then don't forget to do the implicit association test. And apparently you can pick any category that you'd want to test yourself on to see if you have any implicit biases. And so please do that in advance of the meeting and email yourself the results, take a screenshot, print them out, whatever, of whatever tests you end up taking. And then we will see you at the training from 4 to 6 p.m. on Thursday. Denise, do we have, are there any reports from any committees? I know.
It's just we had 2 meetings to follow up on the crew report between the Human Rights Commission and ICPOC, and the meeting that we had invited 4 of individuals who went through the system and came out, and they were helped by the MPRI, Michigan Prison Reentry Initiative kind of thing, and really it's just it's I would say very humbling sometimes to hear the experience of these individuals who were behind bars for a long time and then came out. There was a program for them that they utilized, helped them out, and they succeeded. And one of the gentlemen was he is now running a program to help others. I think A Brighter Way is the name, and they really need help. And from this Friday meeting, it looks like State Senator Jeff Irwin had helped to bring in some money. It's like line item things in the budget. I believe, I don't want to say, but it's about close to $500,000 that can be used in different venues, I think. I don't know how, I don't know the details, but probably maybe a place like a Brighter Way can utilize, can use some of that to help them out, because they are mentoring people who are being released from jails or prisons, and they need all the help that they have. So really, as I said, the main issues that is facing individuals who are being released from prison or jail is housing, and not just for a short time. And also the next thing is probably transportation. So those are some of the venues where really they need the help with. We are following up on this, but I think for the past, I would say, year and a half or so, we had, I think, over 17 meetings, and we were really came in with nothing except the report and all that stuff, and we ended up having really quite a bit of individuals who came and talked to us, including our attorney, Slay. She came and talked to us about some of the laws and et cetera in the state and in here. So it was very enlightening, still enlightening to be part of that. So
thank you so much for continuing to update us on what you're doing with the Human Rights Commission. And I think there's a lot of overlap with what they do and what we do and our interests. And so we appreciate you being the crossover liaison between the two.
Thank you.
Any other communications, any information anybody wants to share? This is the point in the agenda where if anyone needs to share any information or would like to, please do.
I have one thing is I think whether the commissioners are aware of or not, our chair and vice chair really had hard time in the past few weeks, where they experienced the loss of their father-in-laws, both of them, and as a commissioners, we would like to convey our condolences on the passing of your father-in-laws, and I hope that their memories will stay with you and give you the strength to really go through these hard times.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Public comment. Denise, do we have any callers again or still?
No, we just had a listener and no one's available now.
Okay. Then is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn our September meeting.
Is there a second?
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned then, and I will send you guys the updated training document as well as the additional training information.